Shoplifting USA and the dumbest bill in America. This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials and the Millennial. Joining me today is, of course, Christopher Hopkins, our producer on the other side of the camera. Welcome, everyone, to this podcast, which we are calling Shoplifting USA. And we have an incredibly dumbest bill in America, which really connects directly to the Shoplifting USA theme of today's podcast. And so why are we calling it Shoplifting USA? Because in the Daily Caller, Walmart, the massive retailer in the United States, the largest retailer in the world, I believe, certainly the largest retailer in the United States by sales, is eyeing closing stores, some stores, mind you, increasing prices. But why? Due to rampant theft. So get this. Walmart could face store closures and price increases due to the large-scale retail theft, CEO Doug McMillon told CNBC Tuesday. Large-scale shoplifting has become a growing issue for major retailers in recent years, with some CEOs blaming rampant organized crime and lax prosecutors, according to CNBC. Theft has become so widespread that it's making significant cuts into retail profits and could drive major changes to retail operations. Quote, theft is an issue. It's higher than what it has historically been, McMillan said. If that's not corrected over time, prices will be higher and/or stores will close. Mass theft is mostly confined to certain cities and store locations. So there's the meat of the article. Mass theft is mostly confined to certain cities and store locations. And Walmart has good relationships with law enforcement in most areas, but prosecutors have reluctance to charge criminals in these cases, which worsens the problem, McMillan said. The Target CFO, Michael Fidelki, said in November that the retail giant saw a 50% surge in theft over the past year, costing the company $400 million. Now, you might ask yourself, how does the company know that they have theft? Well, because they have an automated system. You know, the barcodes when you buy stuff and they scan the barcode on the stuff that you buy. Well, if they have 100 boxes of, give me something, toys. 100 boxes of toys, and all the toys are exactly the same. Here we go, 100 Barbies. My daughters would like that. 100 Barbies, and Target only sells 75 Barbies, and then there are no Barbies left. Then when they do their inventory, they realize, well, someone stole 25 Barbies. So they know this. They know actually to the item what has been stolen and how much money they have lost. And by the way, the $400 million is the wholesale value of those items. This is an industry-wide problem that is often driven by criminal networks, and we are collaborating with multiple stakeholders to find industry-wide solutions, Fidelki of Target said, according to Fox Business. Along with other retailers, we've seen a significant increase in theft and organized retail crime across our businesses. As a result, we're making significant investments in training and technology that can deter theft. Well, here's the thing. What good is theft detection if when you catch the person in the store, the police aren't going to actually prosecute, or the district attorney or the state's attorney, depending on the state or the locality, isn't it going to actually prosecute the criminal? There's no consequence. It's consequence-free. And so other retailers are facing tough decisions due to rising crime in some American cities. Chicago is seeing a mass exodus of corporations from the city amid worsening theft and violent crime. And Democrat California Governor Gavin Newsom said, Los Angeles looked like a third world country due to organized gangs conducting large-scale theft, which, isn't that amazing? It's always in the Democrat cities or in the Democrat states where this stuff is happening. And so why are we talking about Shoplifting USA on this podcast? Well, one is to talk to you about the fact that this is the consequence of not prosecuting criminals. This is part of the cancel the police culture, which is basically saying you can do whatever you want, consequence free, and you won't serve any time in jail. You'll still get your government assistance, and you can still go out and shoplift, and there will be no consequences. Well, what about the communities? What about the communities where these stores are located that might see the stores leave? I mean, remember, Walmart is not just a department store, if you will, but they also sell food. So it's actually a grocery store. It's a department store. It's a pharmacy. I mean, they sell everything. And as a result, if you lose a Walmart in your community, you actually may not have any other businesses. Look, I think it was CVS, I believe, or maybe it was Walgreens, who said, yeah, in San Francisco, Walgreens keeps closing stores, and it's because of crime, they said. It's crime, meaning that, theft. People are going into the store. There are 3 or 4 individuals, sometimes more, gangs, and they're basically going in there and they're loading up their clothing and or bags with stuff just indiscriminately. And then they run out the door. And of course, these modern stores now really employ the minimum of staff. I'm sure you probably noticed this, because if you ever go into a Walgreens, I mean, there's aisle after aisle after aisle with no one there. And you had that one question like, hey, I have a question. Where do I find aspirin? You can't find it. Now, of course, they have the signs up. This is where the different products are. But you still might walk around for 5 minutes, sometimes longer, to try to find the product. They don't hire enough people. So as a result of not hiring enough people, you've got one person up there at the cash register. You have one pharmacist, maybe 2. They're behind a plate glass window for obvious reasons, because the gangs would go in there. It's the first place they'd go to steal Oxy and God knows what else. There's no one else actually policing the store. So as a result, in San Francisco, there have been many Walgreens store closures, and then now Walmart is looking at doing the same things. Look, CVS has had the same issue, as well as many small businesses across America. This all started, there's always been theft, but this all started when it was normalized in 2020, when we had the BLM movement and the Antifa movement. That normalized looting and systematized theft in America. And then, of course, you have George Soros, who's put his own DAs in across America, mostly in blue states, mind you. And those individuals are saying, stealing isn't that bad. There's really, these are big corporations. They can afford it. Well, guess what? The corporations are saying, no, actually, we can't afford it. And so in targeted areas where we have no real hope of turning the tide against this theft, because it looks like it's going to be sustained as a result of bad politicians running those states, we might just close those stores. So why does that matter? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it matters because the left is in the same cities and in the same states saying there are food deserts. This is a term. I love this term. I love this term because the left is so clever with language. There are food deserts. That means, you go into a barren desert and there's nothing but sand. Well, you go inside of Baltimore City, for example, and there's a food desert. There's nowhere to buy food. Why do you think there's a food desert? Why? In Chicago, in the poorest neighborhoods, there are food deserts. Same thing in every other blue city in America. And guess where else? In New York City. So we have ABC News reporting about this very issue. And we have 3 clips on this. We're going to set this up with these 3 clips and have this conversation about food deserts and how it's directly connected to Shoplifting USA. Here's the first clip. Here it is.
Violence. There's renewed outrage over an issue that affects millions of people, food insecurity. That predominantly black community had fought for years to get the full-service grocery store where the shooting ultimately took place. It's an issue in the 5 boroughs as well. The dark red areas of this map here show neighborhoods where there are more than 25 bodegas to every one supermarket. As CBS 2's Lisa Rosner investigates, the solution isn't just about adding more grocery stores.
In some parts of the Bronx, there are more than 35 bodegas for every supermarket, according to the city's Food Policy Center.
Okay, so that, ladies and gentlemen, is ABC News New York reporting about how there's food insecurity in certain parts of New York City. Well, don't you remember, ladies and gentlemen, watching in 2020, how Antifa and how BLM, they were just systematically looting stores in New York City. And then you have the same ABC News reporter going, and there are so many more bodegas. Like bodegas are bad, right? And a bodega, explain that, Chris. A bodega is like what? Like a little tiny store where they sell kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Like a mini 7-Eleven maybe?
Yeah, we usually have like sandwiches and stuff and like...
You can buy milk, maybe eggs, deli stuff. So it's a tiny little store, ladies and gentlemen. You can imagine in New York City, right? Rent is so expensive. So usually these bodegas are owned by immigrants. Good for them. I'm talking about legal immigrants, legal. And these individuals are entrepreneurs. They open up a small store. And do you want to know why those stores survive? Because the bodegas don't put up with theft. You have the owner working the store 24/7, and the owner is going to hold you accountable. And usually the owner is behind a plate glass window himself and has a gun. Okay? Or he has some other kind of security system, like he buzzes you in the door, and then he won't let you out the door if you try to steal or rob him. Baseball bat. Yeah, I mean, you name it. And so these are small enough stores where the owner can completely see the entire store and can see all of the items and can actually watch you very closely. And he's got cameras everywhere to make sure. Why do you think this is necessary? Because so many of these individuals in these neighborhoods, not all of them, but so many of these individuals think it's okay to rip you off. And so ABC News reported, as you just heard, oh, there's so many more bodegas and, that's a bad thing. What's... I mean, if there weren't bodegas in these neighborhoods, there would be nothing. There would be no food sources whatsoever because the actual food stores, the grocery stores, have shut down because they were so large, there were so many aisles, and they were so understaffed. And in the old days, you didn't have to worry about people ripping you off. It was rare. Now, you almost have to assume that every single person that walks in the door in a large grocery store is going to rip you off. So they've all been shut down for the most part. And now what you have is a bodega. And of course, ABC News is like, bodegas are bad. It's just incredible. I mean,
bring back the cashier.
Yeah, bring back the cashier, right? Because bodegas, you actually have the owner who's the cashier, or the owner's son, or the owner's wife. And there's a person that's actually, checking you out and scanning each item or entering it into the register. And at the same time, that same person is probably looking you up and down to make sure that you didn't grow like 20 pounds because you put stuff in your shirt or your sweater or your pockets. And so Shoplifting USA has an incredible consequence to the poorest of the poor neighborhoods. And yes, I do feel bad for the individuals who are the honest individuals who don't rip off these food stores or rip off the other stores like the CVS's and the Walgreens or the Walmarts, which are the full service kind of like department stores. The good people are the ones that always, or I should say the honest people are always the ones in the poor neighborhoods that are victimized the most. But what amazes me is the lack of reporting. ABC News reporting about, the bodegas are bad. So we have the second clip, ladies and gentlemen, from ABC News. And now they've come up with a new term. You won't believe this. It was food deserts. There's a desert. There are no places to buy food except for the bad bodegas, which are privately owned by the small businessmen and women, most of whom are here legally and they're immigrants. Well, now their new term is food swamps. We have that clip, and here it is.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture refers to neighborhoods where junk food options inundate healthy alternatives as food swamps. Food deserts are places where at least a third of the population is more than half a mile from the nearest supermarket.
So we have food deserts. We have food deserts because you don't have a large grocery store near you, within walking distance, let's say, in New York City, according to ABC News. And now you have food swamps. And what do you think they're showing you in the food swamp? They're showing the bodegas, because the bodegas are selling processed food. You know, processed food that's pre-made, if you will, inside of cans or what have you. And the bodegas, once again, are bad. So you have ABC News actually providing you only part of the story. They're saying, look, the individuals have a right. They have a divine right to have fresh vegetables and fresh fruits and healthy options. Yeah, they do have that right if they stop ripping off those companies and those businesses. So now the bodegas are bad because they're small businesses. And now the bodegas are food swamps. Food swamps are all that exists in the food deserts. Look, you got to admit, the left is really good with this language because it's very visual. You know, it's a swamp. Oh my God, it's dirty. It's murky. Oh God. I mean, isn't that kind of racist? I mean, you calling these small businesses owned by immigrants food swamps? So now our third clip in this ABC News special report about food deserts and food swamps in New York City. We have Nicholas Freudenberg, who's the director of SUNY New York, or CUNY New York, which is the Urban Food Policy Institute. So he's the director of the Urban Food Policy Institute. And it's actually York College, but the acronym is CUNY. I think it's in Queens, in New York City. So this guy has a little clip as well on this ABC News report, and you'll love his solution to the problem. More government, of course. We have that clip. Here it is.
A program called Fresh offers tax incentives for opening a new supermarket.
Each of those programs you've mentioned needs to be increasingly funded and brought to scale.
More government funding to open up grocery stores. That's the problem. The problem is that grocery stores would open up in those neighborhoods if only they had more tax credits and more tax incentives to open up. Oh, yeah. Who in their right mind, I'm talking about a large chain like Walmart or any kind of large grocery store chain, is going to open up in a neighborhood that is full of gangs and crime. Well, at the same time, you have a city that says they want to cancel the police and there's going to be no consequence to the people that break into your store and or steal you blind while you make this massive investment. Who cares how much the tax credits are? But naturally, the left always has a government solution. When the really easy solution here is throw the thieves in jail. Make them serve some jail time and make them pay restitution. Or give them a broom and a mop and ask them to clean the floor of the actual bodega or the actual grocery store or the actual Walmart. Have them do something useful. Have them take the trash out. Have them break down all the boxes that Walmart puts out by the dumpster, because there are, thousands of boxes. When they empty stuff out of the boxes that ship to them, they put the stuff on the shelves. Have the thieves do that. Have them do something useful to demonstrate actually what it takes to run a business. Maybe have small businesses and large businesses and medium-sized businesses have a program or some sort of internal small business program to demonstrate to these individuals the damage that they're doing. And we can't fix any of this until we stop this cancel the police culture, which is killing commerce. And so in the Maryland House of Delegates, and I know I've spoken about this before in past podcasts, there are bills that come before us that basically try to shame the nice neighborhoods where crime is at a minimum for having grocery stores, and the not so nice neighborhoods have food deserts. So there's a bill that we've had. We've had one bill for food deserts. We've had another bill for bank deserts. And of course, the latest, which is food swamps. I can't wait to see that bill. Maybe we should put a bill in like that, Chris, food swamps. So a food desert, right? A bill, like, how is a bill going to fix food deserts? Companies and individuals invest in areas based on their confidence that they can actually make a profit. And they're not going to be able to make a profit if the community is fundamentally unsafe. And remember, the guy in the bodega, and this is important, the guy in the bodega with his wife and his son, all of whom are working his small mini grocery store / deli, he's working behind the plate glass window where he has the cash register, and he probably has a money drop in the ground, a safe. And at some point, he has to leave and shut down the bodega and lock it up. And he has to take that money with him. And remember, bodegas are almost exclusively all cash, right? People that walk in there, these are not individuals that have credit cards. These are individuals that are paying with cash. And he or his wife or his son have to, at some point, leave that bodega and sneak out and probably do a sprint to their car with the cash and get the cash deposited in the bank for safekeeping. And imagine who in their right mind would open up a store in that kind of neighborhood. And you might say, oh, well, geez, that's just so elitist. No, it's not elitist. It's the opposite of what we're trying to say here on Mark the Millennials. We're trying to tell you, we're trying to encourage these neighborhoods, in particular, the honest people in these neighborhoods, to stand up and partner with the police to stop this kind of theft, which drives the businesses out, which causes food deserts, which causes food swamps, which causes bank deserts, which causes commerce deserts. So Shoplifting USA is a huge problem. And it's not going to get any better anytime soon, because in the blue cities, they're doubling down on stupid. And it's just so tiring to hear the left win on this language. And then they go to these same neighborhoods, the left does, and they're like, well, if it were just a matter of those daggone police, just putting people away. I mean, it's at what point will these poor neighborhoods realize that their enemy is really the left? And then you have this Nicholas Freudenberg, who's the director of Urban Food Policy Institute, saying, well, the answer is just give them more tax incentives. I mean, people are just getting dumber and dumber. And so next up, podcast listener, Senator Kyrsten Sinema changes her party affiliation. Can't make this up. So Kyrsten Sinema, she's the Democrat senator from Arizona, has decided to, quote unquote, quit the Democrat Party in a Senate shakeup and become an independent. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Because Kyrsten Sinema is up for re-election in 2 years, which is a presidential year. That's when the president is elected. And Kyrsten Sinema is reading the tea leaves and realizing that in her state in Arizona, while it may be true that Blake Masters lost, which is a big shame, who's the Republican, he was a nobody. No one knew this guy's name, and he almost won, right? So she sees the tea leaves. She realizes that it's entirely possible that a strong Republican, a good candidate, if you will, probably Blake Masters would be ideal, could run against her and win. So don't be fooled that she's quitting the Democrat Party. Yes, it is true that Kyrsten Sinema changed her party affiliation to independent. But do you really think that she's not a Democrat anymore? So in the United States Senate and in the United States House of Representatives, you have caucuses. You have a Democrat caucus and you have a Republican caucus. Now, the caucuses are made up of all of the members of their party, if you will. And those caucus members meet usually once a week, and they discuss policy, they discuss the bills they're going to kill, and they discuss the bills they're going to pass. They discuss strategy on how to get them passed. They discuss strategy on how to kill certain bills. So the question is, in what caucus were Kyrsten Sinema affiliate? Do you really think she's going to affiliate with the Republican caucus? And I know there are some out there who's like, oh, she's going to affiliate with the independent caucus. There is no such caucus. Angus King of Maine, he's an independent. Guess who he caucuses with? The Democrats. Bernie Sanders, I mean, is he an independent or is he a socialist? I mean, what is his party? He's not like a registered Democrat. He's a registered something.
Well, he ran as a Democrat.
Yeah, he always runs, but he's changed his party affiliation here and there, and thinks that the Democrat Party isn't crazy enough, but he always still caucuses with them. This is about, ladies and gentlemen, Kyrsten Sinema running and winning for re-election so that she can go back to Arizona for the next 2 years, and in 2 years' time, in 2024, say, you see, I'm really not a Democrat. I'm actually an independent. I don't really, side with anyone on the Republicans or anyone in the Democrats. So here's what they're saying in the Epoch Times. Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema announced Friday that she left the Democratic Party and is registered as an independent, saying she's turning her back on the broken partisan system in Washington that prioritizes denying the opposition party a win rather than delivering for all Americans. Well, look, that is a great line, okay? No doubt about it. That's a wonderful line. But what I'm trying to tell you is don't be fooled. It's about her getting reelected. And then once the Democrats fully take over, the state of Arizona, which seems to be they're moving in that direction, once they completely ruin that state, do you think for 1 minute she's not going to change her party affiliation back to Democrat? Of course she will. Of course. So she is just doing this for that one and one only reason. And I had to cover this because I'm so tired of Republicans going, oh, so there is hope in the United States Senate. The Democrats have 51 senators and we have 49. The Republicans have 49, so now they have one less Democrat senator. So it's like, no, it's not true. It's not true. She's going to vote with them when they need her. You know that, and I know that. And then from time to time, when the Democrats know that they have enough votes to pass a bill, they're going to give, and it's a bad bill, they're going to give her a pass. That's the way this works. They're going to give her a pass so that she can go back home and say, see, I didn't vote with them this time. It's all a charade, complete charade. So next up, podcast listeners, Twitter, the company that cleans Twitter's offices, was fired. I had to talk about this because this is just karma. All right. And this also tells you a lot about Elon Musk. And clearly, I was raised in kind of the same school, if you will, as Elon Musk, where, and this reminds me, it's very Reagan-esque too. So the janitors union, there's a union, by the way, of janitors, only in California, right? The janitors, let's unionize. Remember, being a janitor is actually supposed to be an entry-level job that you can move up from there. And I think that's pretty safe to say it's kind of like being a busboy in a restaurant. That's kind of like your entry-level job. Minimal skills required to do the job. I think the same thing applies to being a janitor. And the idea is that you do well and you show up and do the job, that you don't steal, that you're honest. and you demonstrate that you're a good person and a good employee, and you will move up the ladder. A busboy moves up to what? Probably a host or a waiter. And a janitor moves up to maybe a supervisor. Or maybe they could open their own company. I mean, all kinds of opportunities. Well, in California, there's a janitors union because, they want to protect the janitors because once you're a janitor, always a janitor, according to the union, which is utter nonsense because that goes against the whole grain of what I just described of moving up. The janitor union called a strike outside of Twitter. So in other words, the janitors union wanted to proselytize outside of Twitter that Twitter's bad. And, we're the janitors union and Twitter's not unionized and they're unfair and so forth. So Elon Musk responded really easily and quickly. He just fired them. Incredible. So the janitors who were hired to clean at Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco protested after 20 employees were fired. Now, why were those 20 employees fired? They were fired because Elon Musk is reducing staff across the board, right? He's reducing costs. That's what you do when the economy is contracting. That's what you do when major advertisers are pulling their advertising from your company. But the janitors union was like, how dare you cut some of our staff there? So Elon Musk is like, fine, I'm just going to fire all of you, as in all of the janitors. And the reason why this is old school is because there is a clear lack of understanding of commerce, once again, that you have to actually make money, enough money to be able to pay your employees and pay the services that are keeping your company going, like janitors. And when the economy contracts, you have to cut staff. When income falls, you have to cut staff. And the teaching moment here is to the janitors. Look, you're not happy with your job? Fine. Go find another job. We'll find someone else to do this work. The critics of Elon Musk are outraged that he would fire the workers just weeks before Christmas. Yeah, but didn't the entire union just go outside of Twitter and strike outside of Twitter? Basically, they're saying, we're not going to clean your offices because you fired 20 of our people. You still kept a lot of other people who were going to be cleaning your offices, janitors, that is. But because you fired 20 because you're cutting staff, we're not going to clean your offices at all. And Elon Musk said, fine, you're all fired. Our cleaning contractor at Twitter was told by Twitter that they are cutting the contract, said Olga Miranda, union president for the janitors. So we have about 48 families out of work, and it just so happens that it's just 3 weeks before Christmas. A representative from SEIU, Local 87, told the New Republic that 20 janitors were told on Friday that they were fired with no notice and that they were fighting for wages, benefits, and job protections. By Monday, the union organized a strike with the rest of the janitors. Unbelievable. And against the firings, the union said, saying the company was violating local cleaning regulations. So the janitors were like, we're not going to clean your offices. We're going to go on strike. And as a result, you're violating the cleaning regulations because your place isn't getting cleaned regularly. They also said they were locked out of the building. On Tuesday, Twitter canceled the contract with the janitors, leading his critics to claim that he was in violation of the local laws. The unemployed janitors are protesting in front of Twitter headquarters while holding signs that read, "Proud to be union and justice for janitors." Folks, look. This is decisive action. This reminds me of Ronald Reagan a little bit, not quite the same scale, but the air traffic controllers, the guys that are in the towers at all the airports, these are the ones that make sure that flights land and take off safely, as well as when you're in the air, that flights are far enough away from each other, planes are far enough away from each other that they don't hit into one another. It's an important job, to say the least. And they went on strike. Their union got all of the air traffic controllers to go on strike, and Ronald Reagan was like, fine, you're fired. Literally fired them. This is in the 1980s. And remember, these are people that were making a lot of money by standards in the 1980s and by today's standards as well. And Reagan's like, you know what? There are plenty of people, granted, it's going to take some time to train them, but there are plenty of people that want to do this job. And you're not going to hold the United States ransom by not showing up for this critically important job. So he fired them. Elon Musk, same way. It's like, you're not going to hold our company ransom because you've decided you don't like me or you don't like the new Twitter 2.0. You're fired. So then he just doubled down, Elon Musk, that is. And an Elon Musk aide, get this is in the New York Post, told the fired Twitter janitor, boy, that's quite a tongue twister there. He told the Twitter janitor that his job will be replaced by a robot. A top lieutenant of Elon Musk allegedly told a fired member of Twitter's cleaning staff that his job would one day be done by robots, according to a report. Julio Alvarado, who worked as janitor at Twitter for 10 years before he was let go by Musk's team, said the work environment changed radically once new ownership took over. People worked without worries, he told BBC. Now we are afraid. After Musk took over the company, Alvarado said that private security guards would watch him closely while he cleaned parts of the tech mogul's office. Alvarado, who supports his family in Mexico by sending remittances to them, claimed that one of Musk's most senior assistants told him that his job would one day be rendered obsolete because robots will do the job. You know what? It probably actually makes sense that robots do that job. And I don't want the podcast listeners, please, to think that in any way I'm being insensitive to this. Is important, right? This is an important issue. You never want to see people lose their jobs. But the unions in America have this record of completely and utterly ruining an industry, one after another, by getting greedy and getting lazy. We saw this in the Midwest, where the unions wrecked the car industry by being greedy and lazy. And then we also saw this in other industries as well, different kinds of manufacturing industries, in the steel industry. I mean, we can go on and on and on. And now, of course, janitors need to be unionized. Come on. So the union is wrecking them by saying, you are entitled to work and never to be laid off and never to lose your job. I'm sorry, but that's not true. That's not true. And of course, I feel sorry for some of these individuals. But if you're going to look to the union to be your answer and your savior for your job, believe me, you need to find somewhere else. For example, you need to find a different way of making a living that is more sustainable, obviously, and to gain traction, to gain skills so that maybe you can open up your own business one day. Don't rely on the union. And I'll just say this. I have a grandfather who was a longtime Teamster. That means truck driver. So he's part of the Teamsters Union. He retires. Okay. My grandfather was honest, never had an accident in his truck his entire career. Imagine that. Pretty extraordinary. He retired, and no sooner did he retire, like within 2 years of retirement, the Teamsters sent him a letter saying, well, we've got some problems with your pension. We're going to cut your pension.
Oh, my goodness.
Because they were ripping it off. This is what they do. This is what they do. He would have been better off putting his money in some sort of annuity and or stock market, high yielding or mid yielding or even low yielding or bonds than relying on the Teamsters. So please stay away from this. And also, speaking of Elon Musk, he hits back at the House Democrat claiming hateful speech is rising on Twitter. I had to talk about this today. I have to, because remember, Elon Musk just took over Twitter. And who do you think is saying hate speech is up on Twitter? Representative Adam Schiff. So Shifty Schiff says that hate speech has increased on Twitter. So here's what Adam Schiff put out and tweeted. On Elon Musk's Twitter, Adam Schiff says, slurs against black people have tripled. Slurs against women are up 33%. Slurs against Jewish people are up 61%. And slurs against gay men are up 58%. These numbers are abysmal and unacceptable. Today, Representative Mark Takano and I are demanding action, says Adam Schiff in his tweet. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, this kind of nonsensical, unchallenged stats that are put out there by Democrats are what we have been force-fed for years. And when we try to respond, what happens? We are shadow banned. We are just banned altogether. Or no one actually ever sees your tweet because you have no friends anyway. You have no Twitter followers because Twitter, of course, prevented you from ever getting any followers of any kind of traction to begin with. So the Democrats have been used to literally putting out tweets and information that was unchallenged because of big tech. Well, not anymore. So Adam Schiff said this. Slurs against black people have tripled. Slurs against women are up 33%. Slurs against Jewish people are up 61%. And slurs against gay men are up 58%. And he and another congressman, Mark Takano, are demanding action. So Elon Musk responds in a tweet, of course. He says, quote, false. Hate speech impressions are actually down a third for Twitter now versus the prior to the acquisition. Just look at community notes, he says. So Elon Musk personally responds to this. Now remember, Twitter 1.0, which is pre-Musk, you would have the various Twitter speech monitors make sure that you only saw Adam Schiff's comments, no matter what the comments were. But now Elon Musk isn't even relying on anyone that works for Twitter to have his back. He's taking full responsibility himself. And he's tweeting and responding. This is great. This is amazing. This is like what freedom of speech actually looks like, and holding the liars accountable like Schiff. I mean, this man is literally the world's biggest liar. I can only hope that if there were any congressman that deserves to be stripped of any committee, he should never be serving on a committee in Congress. Yet he's likely to be, at some point, the replacement of Pelosi. At some point. Currently, he's not, but I could see that happening because he represents an area in California where he can raise a lot of money, and that actually matters in Congress. But Elon Musk is not taking it anymore from the highly connected and rich who are threatening him, literally, because that's what this is. That's Adam Schiff saying, we are demanding action. In other words, we're going to do something to hurt you. And so Musk is like, it's false. What you just said literally is false. These kinds of impressions and slurs are actually down by a third since I've taken over, and we can demonstrate it because we are actually following it and collecting the data. That's important. And so, why does that matter? Matters because the Babylon Bee, which was banned by Twitter 1.0, imagine that, banned. A satirical newspaper, a satirical website, banned by Twitter. Now it's back up on Twitter 2.0. In the New York Times, you've got, of course, the writers who are on strike. That just happened. And you have the New York Times, of course, bashing Elon Musk and Twitter. And the Babylon Bee says disinformation is down 92% as the New York Times writers go on strike. That's good stuff. And then, ladies and gentlemen, there's a New York Times article about dissent. I mean, I just can't. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's an article that talks about having an alternative opinion in Russia or China and how that's not allowed and how it should be. This is the same paper that doesn't believe in dissent in the United States or freedom of speech on the tech platforms. I mean, this is on the front page of the New York Times today. And then Elton John just tweeted out, literally while I'm recording this podcast, he just tweeted out, all my life I've tried to use music to bring people together, yet it saddens me to see how misinformation is now being used to divide our world. I've decided to no longer use Twitter, given their recent change in policy, which will allow misinformation to flourish unchecked. And look, Elton John, brilliant song, brilliant singer. He doesn't write his own songs. Brilliant singer, great career, but also pretty darn stupid to be able to put something out like that. And maybe, who knows, maybe he read Adam Schiff's comment and actually believes it. And this is the problem. This is what Elon Musk is going to correct. Thank God he's finally going to correct this and allow freedom of speech to flourish. Next up, podcast listeners, we have the dumbest bill in America. And do we have a lead up, Mr. Producer? Here it is. And it's the dumbest bill in America, and it is banning landlords from checking criminal backgrounds of tenants. Banning landlords from checking whether or not you have a criminal background before renting you their apartment. New York City is engaged in legislation to stop any landlord from checking whether or not you have a criminal background and preventing and using that as a reason to not rent you the apartment as crime rates continue to skyrocket in New York City. Embattled Democrat Mayor Eric Adams has thrown his likely support behind legislation banning landlords from performing criminal background checks on their potential tenants. New York City Council's Committee on Civil Rights next week will consider the bill, known as the Fair Chance for Housing Act, which will put criminals, once again, Democrats are so good at language, the Fair Chance for Housing Act, which will, how about the fair chance for the guy that they ripped off or killed, right? Which will put criminals on the same plane as law-abiding citizens in their housing search. So you're law-abiding, you go fill out your application, then you got this other dude who's a complete and utter criminal, may even have been a murderer, and he might be on the same footing as you to actually get what? He might actually get the right to rent the place before you. It's incredible. So at least 30 New York City Council members have announced their support for the bill, ensuring its passage in the 51-member chamber, and the mayor intends to help craft and implement the act once it becomes law. Oh, wait a minute. We have to read his quote. Quote, no one should be denied housing because they were once engaged with the criminal justice system, plain and simple, a spokesperson for the mayor's office said in a statement sent to Fox Business. We will work closely with our partners in the city council to ensure this bill has been intended and has a maximum impact as intended. So let's get this straight. Shoplifting is at an all-time high in the United States. And stores, retail stores, and department stores like Walmart, pharmacies like Walgreens, businesses of all shapes and sizes are shutting down. And as those businesses shut down, the criminals continue to steal without any consequence whatsoever. And now there's no consequence. What is the teaching moment? I asked you, podcast listeners, what is the teaching moment for a criminal if they can go rent a place? You know what the teaching moment should be? You don't get to live anywhere until you abide by the law, until you make restitution to the people that you ripped off, or to the people that you killed, or to the person that you killed. And this is where liberals make things even worse. They're trying to create a consequence-free environment, which basically undermines law and order. It undermines the civil society. Why do you think people come to the United States to begin with? Because we have the rule of law. Our law works. It's not working anymore in the blue cities like New York City. Because now you could be in an apartment building, the one place, home where you think you're safe, and you could have living next to you in the apartment building, because of Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, a murderer. I don't want to live in an apartment building with a murderer in the building. I am assuming that the actual owner of the building is doing a great job to make sure I don't have those people inside of my building, let alone people who are criminals who are ripping places off left and right, because what do you think they're going to do when I leave my apartment? They're going to break into my apartment and they're going to clean it out. So banning landlords from running criminal background checks, once again, the liberals are doing everything they can to destroy the major cities in the United States. And in this case, it's in New York City. And that is the dumbest bill in America. And that's it for Mark and the Millennials. Thank you for joining Mark and the Millennials. This is Mark Fisher. Thank you to our producer, Christopher Hopkins. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, Twitter 2.0, YouTube, Facebook, Getter, True Social, Rumble, and our website. See you next time.